In this video, you are going to be learning about something known as the factor label method. This is something that you may have used in math class before. It is sometimes referred to as dimensional analysis, but it is a technique that is going to be extremely useful as we start Unit 7 on the mole. Before we begin, you're going to want to make sure you have a calculator. Much of what we do in this unit requires you to do some type of calculation, so a calculator will be required. So again, the point of this video is to help you to understand how to use something known as the factor label method to convert between units. The examples that we give in this video aren't exactly going to be chemistry related. However, the technique will come in useful or helpful as we start our next unit. So, the factor label method is a method that is designed to help you convert from one unit to another. Okay, and it uses what are known as conversion factors. So once you know various conversion factors and you understand the factor label method, you should easily be able to convert from one unit to another. Okay, some examples of some very basic conversion factors are as follows. Now again, these are not things that you have to memorize, but just to give you an example of what a conversion factor would look like. Okay, we know that 1 inch is equal to 2.54 centimeters, and that 1 foot is equal to 12 inches. In 1 mile, there are 5,280 feet. In 1 year, there are 365 days. In 1 day, there are 24 hours. In 1 hour, there are 60 minutes. In 1 minute, there are 60 seconds. So again, all of these are just some very common, basic examples of conversion factors. So again, when we use the factor label method, we're going to use these conversion factors to help us convert between units. Okay, the rules for using the using the factor label method are as follows. First of all, you want to make sure that you start with the given information. Anytime you read a problem, you need to decide where it is you start from. And the starting point for these types of problems is going to be that given information. Okay, from there, you are going to multiply by the conversion factors sequentially until your desired unit is reached. For some conversions, you might only need 1 conversion factor. Other times, you may need 2, 3, 4, etc. But you keep going and you keep multiplying by these conversion factors until whatever unit you're looking for is reached. Okay, the key behind the factor label method is that you want to make sure you keep common units on opposite sides of the fraction so that they cancel each other out. And the idea behind factor label method is that you are canceling units until you end up with that desired unit. Okay, once you've reached your final unit then, to solve, you are going to multiply the numbers across the top and divide by any numbers on the bottom. Okay, the rules for using the factor label method may seem complicated in words, but once we start looking at examples of them, it becomes a lot easier. Okay, so we're going to start right away with an example of how to use the factor label method. So for our example, we are going to start with a very basic conversion. Let's say we want to know how many centimeters there are in 1 mile. Okay, the first thing we have to do when we read this problem is decide where our starting point is. And our starting point is always going to be some numerical value. Okay, so if I read this question, it says how many centimeters are there in 1 mile. So the given information, or where I want to start from, is the 1 mile mark. Okay, so I'm going to start by writing 1 mile as my given information. Now, the idea behind the factor label is that we are going to multiply by what are known as conversion factors. Conversion factors are going to be fractions, so there'll be a top and a bottom, and the idea is that units on opposite sides of the fraction are going to cancel out. Now, it's important to recognize that our given information is always going to be on the top of a fraction, and so sometimes it helps to just put that given information over 1 so that we remember that in this case the 1 mile is found on the top of my fraction. Okay, so off the top of our head, do we know how many centimeters there are in 1 mile? Probably not. Do we know how many inches there are in a mile? Probably not. However, if we go back to the conversion factors that we saw a couple of slides ago, we do know that there are 5,280 feet in 1 mile. So this 5,280 feet equaling 1 mile is going to be our first conversion factor. Now, if I look at my given information, the miles are at the top of my fraction. So to cancel them off, I am going to put miles on the bottom. Okay, I can convert miles into feet, and so the units of feet are going to go on the top. Now we want to treat the line here dividing my fraction as an equal sign, which means the numbers on the top should equal the numbers on the bottom, okay, in terms of the units. And so according to this conversion factor, there are 5,280 feet in 1 mile. So the 5,280 should go on top, the 1 mile should go on the bottom. Again, the mile is on the bottom because our given information, we have miles on top, so in order to cancel them, we want to make sure we put miles on the bottom. Now, if we were to stop right here, our final units for our answer would be in feet, since feet are the only units that are not canceled off in this video. Okay, but the question is not asking us for how many feet there are in a mile, it's asking us for how many centimeters are in a mile. And so therefore, we need to keep going. So we're going to set up another conversion factor here. Okay, this time to cancel off the units of feet, we're going to put feet on the bottom. And we can convert feet now into inches. So inches are going to go on the top. Okay, we know that there are 12 inches in 1 foot. Okay, now in this example, you are going to see that the number 1 is always in the bottom of our fraction. That may not always be the case, but for this, the way that the conversion factors work out, the 1 is at the bottom. Okay, so there are 5,280 feet. We've canceled the feet now by saying there are 12 inches in 1 foot. Okay, so my units of feet cancel, and if I were to stop here, my answer would be in inches. But again, the question is asking me for centimeters, so I'm going to keep going. To cancel off my unit of inches, I'm going to put inches on the bottom, and now I can finally convert to centimeters. I know that there are 2.54 centimeters in 1 inch. Okay, my inches cancel, and now my final answer is going to be in the units of centimeters. So now that we've reached that desired unit, we can now calculate and solve this problem. Okay, to solve it, we want to multiply all the numbers on the top of our fraction, multiply all the numbers on the bottom of our fraction, and then at the very end, we can divide this out. So if I start with the bottom, I have 1 times 1 times 1 times 1, which we know is going to give me 1. And now in the top of my fraction, I'm going to multiply 1 times 5,280 feet times 12 inches times 2.54 centimeters. And when I do, I end up with this, 160,934.4. Okay, that is over 1. Might not always be over 1, but in this case it is. So if I divide that out, my final answer ends up being 160,934.4. And the most important part of this problem is that we include the proper units, which in this case is centimeters. So in 1 mile, we use the factor label method to determine there are 160,934.4 centimeters. Okay, let's take a look at another example. For this problem, I'm going to have you start this or complete this one on your own, but I am going to get you started. So the question asks, how many seconds have you been alive? Okay, so remember, the first step in solving a factor label problem is starting with your given information. Now, if I read this problem, there is no numerical value in this problem, so I have to think about, okay, what is it the question's asking, and where do I start? The question is asking for how many seconds you have been alive. So my final answer should end up with the units of seconds. Okay, our starting point then is going to be the number of years that you've been alive. Now, depending on how old you are, that number can vary, but my guess is most of you in this class are close to 16. Okay, so you're going to want to start with 16 years or however old you might be. So if you're 15, start with 15. If you're 17, you can start with 17 years. Okay, from there then, you are going to want to remember that our given information is over 1, and now you're going to multiply by your conversion factors until you get to this desired unit of seconds. Okay, our steps will be as follows. You're going to start with years, and from years, you're going to want to convert to figure out how many days you've been alive. From days, you can figure out how many hours you've been alive, and then from hours, you can convert to seconds. So you should end up with 3 different conversion factors till you get to your final answer of seconds. So now I would like you to try to solve this problem, determine how many seconds you have been alive. Please make sure you set it up using this factor label method, circle your final answer, and when you are done, come show me and I will check it off.